approval of the agenda for today's meeting. We have somebody wanting to move approval subject to ratification.
This is Jeff, so moved.
Amanda, seconds.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Any further comments related to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Again, I would stress this is all subject to ratification at our next board meeting. The minutes were included with our board packet. I would again consider a motion for approval, subject to ratification. Anyone willing to do that?
This is
Garrett, so
Rachel.
moved.
I'll make a motion.
And then we get more. Gunnar, you got it?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, a second to the motion.
I'll second, Holly.
Okay, thanks, Holly. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion related to the minutes for the meeting we had January 4th? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, I direct your attention to page 7 in our packets. This would be a report and suggested vote on the fiscal year 2022 budget. I think we had a bit of a snapshot of this at the last meeting, but now we have it in front of us. So Gunnar, are you covering this?
I'm going to ask Dylan from our office to do that.
Hey, Dylan, you're up.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, you're right. We did cover this last month and not a lot has changed, but I'll walk through this again and I'll touch on those a couple things that did change. So again, just to reiterate, the revenue that MIPA is expected to receive largely comes from membership dues that match the EDA partnership program. So those are both the $70,000 each. Last time we did talk a little bit about what to do with any dues that are beyond what is required for the match. So that's one thing that wasn't in the budget last time, but we did put that in there so you could see what that difference is. And then the third thing is just any additional grants or contracts. So we did put an amount in there. We talked about this last month, just putting enough in there to kind of make sure everything breaks even. That number didn't change. That amount is still the same from what you saw last time. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the numbers for just the revenue. So again, we've got both the fourth quarter of FY22, and that's really what we're focusing on now. But I also went ahead and showed FY23 again too. So you can see what's required for the partnership program match. And then underneath that, it's anything that was beyond that we received thus far. And we'll just keep those, we show them here, but they're really just held on to in reserves. They're not programmed anywhere else in the budget here. So we've got the dues, we've got the partnership program, and then any additional grants for a total revenue for the fourth quarter of a little over $52,000. And then for the full year, $208,000 and change. If we move on to the next one, we'll talk about costs. Costs here are largely these, for the salaried individual that we're going to hire, so salary, fringe, benefits, and so forth. Indirect costs for their office space and any supplies and that kind of thing. Support costs for any other assistance that the MPO will be providing for planning support, as well as for administrative support, and then the audit. And then there is part of that MPO staff support is just an administrative fee. So that's kind of where the administrative side of things comes from. So all of this is the same as last time. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the numbers. These are largely the same as last time. The indirect costs were tweaked just a hair. I think the salary and everything, that is the same. So pretty much this is all the same as it was before. Like I said, just the indirect costs were changed just slightly. We did add all of this is proportional to everything else that the MPO does. So any other contracts. So we did add in another contract, so that reduced things a little bit proportionally for what MIPA pays for. So that's why things changed slightly from what you saw last time. Then if we go to the next one, just kind of comparing costs and revenues. Again, this is largely similar to what you saw last time. The only difference really is that the overages are programmed in there. So last time we had, a very small balance at the end of the, at the bottom of the page there at the end of the year. This time it's higher, but only because those overages were put in there, if that makes sense. So really, if you're just looking at what's coming in, what's going out in that year, without counting that money that will be held for reserves, we're pretty much just, breaking even there. And like I talked about last time, the way that the MPO will bill MIPA is we'll bill on what we actually incur. So if we don't incur some of those indirect costs, or we don't incur all of those, we're not going to turn around and, we'll bill what we actually incur proportionally for what's been spent, in terms of hours and so forth across all of our contracts. So really what you're looking at here is probably a worst case scenario or an up to amount. If we ever need to go above and beyond that, we'd, do a budget amendment and make sure everyone's aware of that before we just start billing anything. So I think that's all I have for you for budget. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Dylan, something that I will note, speaking about overages, we'll talk about membership a little bit more. And we didn't really have final membership numbers for our update to you last time. That's why it's a little more specific this time. And the other thing I'll note is that the vote we're asking for today is for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. The thought process here is that the interim board will get us going with the fourth quarter for FY 2022, and that the budget for FY 23 will be voted on by the board once everyone is all the members have seated their reps.
Questions or clarification that you want from staff related to potential action on the budget? So the motion would be to approve fourth quarter fiscal year 2022, again, subject to ratification from the full board when we convene next month. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, I'd consider a motion to approve the fourth quarter fiscal year 2022 budget subject to ratification.
So moved. This is Clyde.
Thanks, Clyde. Do we have a second to Clyde's motion?
Jeff, second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any further discussion related to fiscal year 2022 fourth quarter budget? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Passes, again, subject to ratification. Moving to item 5 on our agenda, page 10 in our board packet, contract with the MPO. Which staff is covering this?
I'll take a first stab at it, and then Dylan and or Scott will jump in to correct any mistakes I make. But as you know, you all heard the background on this. MPO staff has kind of led the effort to get this established with your guidance and support. But the arrangement that we've been discussing all along is for MIPA to hire one employee directly, and then the MPO contract will cover the balance of the needs as an organization. The main outlines here is that Todd will be the supervisor of employees, hiring, firing, etc., human resources, payroll, benefits management, accounting, auditing, all the really fun stuff. And in addition, so that the MIPA as an organization has the flexibility to expand capacity to take on projects for its members as needed. The annual costs here, these didn't change very much from what we shared with you last time. I think there was a slight increase in indirect costs by like $500 since we shared this with you last. That's all I have for slides here today. What I was going to mention is what we're looking for a motion for today would be to vote on the employment agreement that was sent to the board yesterday afternoon. And then we need a little bit more time to flesh out the full contract for the balance of services. And what this would allow us to do is get the hiring piece taken care of in the next month. So we have a staff person on board for April 1, and then give us a little more time to flesh out the rest of those details.
So anybody that knows me, I'm not usually a stickler for details, but can we, I know we're only acting for future decisions, but the employment agreement wasn't actually on the agenda. So I don't know if that is concerning to anybody in terms of acting on that today. Because I think the action was to act on the contract and
Yeah, we're treating the employment agreement as a subsection of the contract.
Okay.
But I'll defer to our legal counsel on whether he has an opinion on that.
again, it's unlike me to be a stickler for details, but anyway, I would just bring that to the, since we do have a number of elected officials on the line.
Sure. So, sorry, this is Scott Brennan. I think that the contract, you could approve the contract. It was identified, I think, as part and parcel of what the agreement with the MPO, between the MPO and the MIPA. I mean, it is a subset, as Gunnar said. So I think you can, the bottom line is that anything you do today is subject to future ratification anyway. So I think if anybody has real concerns about it, we can go back and fix it.
Want to table the whole thing.
No, I think
So, questions from the group, comments from the group for the board. So the board action today would be to either approve or not take action on the employment agreement, again, subject to ratification at an April board meeting. Do I have someone willing to make that motion?
Be willing to make a motion to approve the proposed employment contract.
Thanks,
I think
Carrie.
it's consistent with what we've been discussing leading up to this point.
Thanks, Carrie. Do we have a second to Carrie's motion?
This is Derek. I'll second that.
Thanks, Derek. So we've had a motion, a second to approve the employment contract that was provided to us in advance of the meeting, subject to ratification of the board in April. So any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote on the motion. All those in favor of proceeding with the employment agreement, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, so moving on to item 6, the state auditor's opinion regarding the nonprofit status of MIPA. And Gunnar, are you covering this?
I'll take first crack at it and then let Scott jump in as needed. So this bubbled up to us during the membership enrollment period when we started getting a couple of questions from a few prospective members. And then Scott had opportunity to meet with the state auditor staff and get some clarification on what it is. And the basis of the issue is that the state auditor's office wants to ensure that public dollars from cities and counties go toward public purpose, and those are spelled out in Iowa code. And their preference would have been for us to form as a 2080 because it really solidifies that public purpose, or we could have done something to add language to our resolutions of membership to speak to that. I want to take a step back real quickly and speak to the reasons why staff recommended a 504 in the first place, along with legal counsel. Basically, it was acceptable to the EDA, and I think the biggest one is the second bullet here. It just makes it really simple for eligible jurisdictions to join. And speaking candidly, from a political standpoint, I'm not sure we would have had the membership and interest if we had tried to go the 2080 route. And I'll also remind you that the whole timeline on the creation of this was built backwards from the start of the federal fiscal year that started in September. because that was the soonest we could possibly get it opening or get it started and open up the pipeline for more funds, so to speak. So the 2080 would have been very difficult to start in that time frame, whereas the 504 was very simple to start, and then membership to join at a later date was very simple. So I just want to remind everyone of the context of the reason why we went for the 504. And so what we're recommending as next steps is just to do a simple motion from the board, and I'll have Scott outline what the motion would be for your consideration. But just to adopt a statement of public purpose, just to say, yes, we fully intend to comply with the chapter of the state code. But then long term, we can update our resolutions of membership for the next enrollment period and just add that language in there. The one thing I want to highlight is that there are a lot of regional entities, COGs and EDDs in the state that operate as nonprofit, and the state auditor did acknowledge that they're perfectly legal. So, Scott, anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think Gunnar laid it out very well. I guess the one addition, so then to the bullet point that says near term, I think for purposes of today, my suggestion would be that, essentially there'd be a motion to adopt a statement of public purpose consistent with Iowa Code Chapter 15A. And then we'll work on what that exactly looks like for that longer term change to the resolutions. And I think that will come closer to satisfying what the state auditor's office had some concern about.
So again, we just want to make you aware of this issue that kind of popped up during the enrollment period. We think we're perfectly fine. Just want to do everything I can to assure the state auditor's office that we're trying to keep everything above board.
Okay, I want to just confirm what I heard Scott say. So really, what we're looking to do today is to adopt the public purpose statement consistent with Iowa Code Section 5A. Is that something along those lines?
Consistent with Iowa Code Chapter 15A.
Okay, I was writing fast. Questions from the board related to this agenda item? Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Do we have someone that would make a motion to the effect of adopting the public purpose statement consistent with Iowa Code Chapter 15A?
This is Jeff, so moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second to Jeff's motion?
This is Rachel. I'll second.
Thank you, Rachel. Again, we have a motion and a second to adopt the statement of public purpose consistent with Iowa Code Chapter 15A, again, subject to board ratification in April. Any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? Motion passes. Let's move on to item 7, page 13 in our packets. This would be related to membership and an update on where we're at with that. Staff, are you ready to discuss that item?
Yeah, I can. And I've gotten one note that I'm a little bit hard to hear, so I'll try speaking up a little louder. And please indicate if you're not hearing me. So as of today, we have 46 jurisdictions that have indicated membership to us, and we have resolutions for most of them in hand. So I won't read through all of those. You've seen versions of this in the past, but we're past the stated deadline of February 15th, though I do anticipate that we might get a couple late arrivals. And also we'll remind you that our bylaws allow for members to join really at any time. They might have to pay some back dues But so it's possible that we could add some mid-year. So we looked into these a little bit more deeply just to share some of our insights. And we can confidently say that more than 80% of our population is covered by a member. So we're feeling very positive about how much membership we do have. So I'm kind of surprised by this. 5 of the 7 counties joined. When we were asking them, the boards of supervisors, a year ago, whether they would support the creation of an EED, we heard from a lot of them that yes, we're going to support this, but we may or may not support it financially. And a lot of them joined, to their credit, and we're really pleased with that, and also just think it speaks volumes to what the value that they think we're going to be able to bring to the region.
Matter of public record.
I'll also note that of the eligible cities, there are 89 and 41 of them joined. And then I'll also note that the majority of those are within the county or cities with 1,000 or more population. I did note those that did not join. I think the biggest, notable hole here would be Ames, Altoona, Perry, Polk City, some of those larger cities. I'll also note that at least Perry and Polk City have talked about this in a favorable way. I think Pleasantville might be in that situation as well. So we could potentially see a couple of those come in last minute. I'm going to go back and speak to Jasper County. Jasper County is the only one with 100% participation. I want to give a shout out to Jeff and his team. Jeff and Tanya worked with them over there, made that happen for us. It's due to the supervisors actually paying for first year dues for all the members, save for Newton and Jasper County. We did an exercise of mapping these. All the cities are filled in, and then the counties that are participating are outlined here, just to visualize all the population being served here. Again, a significant share of the population in the region are being served. And that's it for my update, unless I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Gunnar?
I guess just a curiosity question. Any reason why Ames hasn't signed on?
I had a feeling that was coming.
Take a stab at that.
I'll discuss from my perspective, and then certainly Gunnar and Andrew have both been involved in those conversations. So I really, the sense I've got from my conversation with the city manager is really that there was a recommendation from the planning department that they didn't feel like that was a direction or services they felt like the city would benefit from. And that's, I of course disagree with that, and have asked Gunnar to reach out and talk to the planning staff. So we'll continue to keep the city updated, the administration, the council updated. I made a note and took a screenshot today, but we're continuing that dialogue, but that's really what I've been told on a couple different occasions. So Gunnar, anything, you've probably had more recent conversations than I have.
Well, we've done some outreach, but haven't had much luck connecting with them. I think at this point we don't want to pester too much, frankly. We don't want to be seen as too pushy. And I think after we're going to show some value early enough, and I think they're going to come around and see that they really need to be a part of this. And the other thing that I'll share is that in talking with EDA staff, they've had past experiences with the city of Ames in particular, where they did get an EDA grant, but because of the lack of an EDD and because of the lack of a SEDS and all that stuff, it was a more painful process for both parties than it needed to be. And so I hope that experience comes to the top of their memory at some point, and that they see the value here. We certainly think it would bring value to them.
So thank you for asking. And like I said, we continue to work on that. Any other questions related to membership, field of membership? If not, let's go down and hear a report on the partnership program.
Not a whole lot to report here, but just want to keep you up to date. Last time, or at their last meeting, the board gave a signature authority to Todd for us to apply. And we did get the application in on deadline on February 7th. We did a little bit of follow-up information at their request, but mostly the application was complete on first go. What we've heard is that the Denver region has reviewed it, passed it on to higher ups for review. Last I heard, it was being reviewed by legal, which is a good sign. So no official word yet, but I did ask the EDA staff if we were still on track for April 1, and he said, yes, we believe that you're on track for April 1 start date. And just as a reminder, this is the 3-year grant for $210,000 or $7,000. So that's what I have for you today.
Okay, let's move on to item number 9, staffing.
I'll take this one as well. We also have been moving to fill the staff position for MIPA. As you know, MPO will be the administration here. This is a senior level position, around $70K plus benefits, targeting to start April 1. We did post the opening in February. I want to say thank you to those of you on the board who reviewed the job description and sent us feedback. We incorporated a lot of your comments. We're anticipating doing first round interviews in early March. I should mention we do have 2 applicants so far. It's been out there for about a week now. We do have volunteers, 1 from each county, to serve on a hiring committee. I won't read them all for you here, but you can see them on the screen. We're going to wait till we see how many candidates we get and the quality of those candidates before we define a process for committee involvement. I could be as simple as, you know, a final interview if we have 1 clear candidate, or it could be more involved if we have some difficult decisions to make. But we'll reach out directly to those committee members with a recommendation at the appropriate time and work it out that way. We're hoping to be able to make an offer in mid-March, and again, start date of April 1. I'll take any questions, or if anyone from our team has anything to add. I'll say that we've had a couple members working on this. Zach and Dylan from our team have taken the lead on this, and they're both on the line. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Guess I would say thank you in advance to our hiring committee volunteers, and thanks for making it pretty easy on us thus far. So let's move on to item 10 on the agenda.
I'll take this one as well. As you recall, you all joined us as a SED steering committee, and then when we formed the 504 nonprofit, you all gracefully stayed on as an interim board of directors and have made this transition possible. Now that membership enrollment period is closing, we are in the position to start transitioning to the full-time board of directors. So what we're proposing is that we use the first or the 4th quarter of fiscal year 2022 to make that transition. And so we're thinking by mid-March, we'll solicit board reps from the member jurisdictions, and we'll do that concurrent with our invoicing to them. And our thought process here is that we'll have April 15th as a deadline for those appointments to be made. That sets us up to solicit the private sector reps. There's 2 per county, and those are appointed by the members within the county. So any member, so basically, once we have board reps from each member, the board reps from each county will get together and help identify private sector reps for board representation. And we hope to have those lined up by May 13th. And then this sets us up to hold the first full board meeting, which by the bylaws is supposed to happen in May, to adopt a work program and budget for the first full fiscal year. A couple of discussion points here. The first is I'll throw out 10 a.m. Monday on May 30th as a potential meeting time. And would be curious to know your thoughts on that. Before I let go of the mic here, we'll note that the full board will need to meet at least 1 more time this fiscal year due to, we need to update our SEDS this fiscal year according to EDA to get on the 5-year cycle. I think we've mentioned that previously. At any rate, so we'll have to have at least 1 more meeting of the full board this calendar year. I'll pause here. Any questions or thoughts on the transition to the full board as well as the proposed first annual meeting?
I show that the 30th is Memorial Day.
Look at you. So,
For the record, anybody that knows me, this is two attention to detail things that normally are not in my DNA. So
also my anniversary, so maybe it's a good reminder that I shouldn't be trying to work too much that day. Well, then maybe we'll come back with another recommendation at the next meeting, or does anyone have any thoughts on who might do it? Maybe late the previous week, like Thursday. But we don't have our actual numbers yet. Our thought process here is that we'll just pick a date as we're communicating with everybody for their board appointments and everything, rather than appoint everyone and then try to pick a date that works for everyone. Well, I'll move on to the transition of the executive committee, and we can pick up conversation afterward. So the executive committee will be oversee the day-to-day operations. Frankly, I see a lot of the people who are on this call carrying over into the executive committee, and I can certainly speak on behalf of staff, saying we appreciate a lot of leadership that you've shown here carried over to the executive committee. We see that being possibly it will be feasible to form in the second half of April, because by then we'll have all the appointed board members from the member jurisdictions. Same as our private sector appointments, we would give a deadline of May 13th. And then after that, we would look to adopt a bi-monthly schedule for executive committee. I'll note that Tuesday mornings haven't been working. A lot of our county affiliated members just aren't able to join us. And today's meeting is case in point. We have 10 of 29 members on call. So, and then I guess I would open up to any suggestions on best day of the week or week of the month. And we don't have to answer these questions here and now, but I would be curious if you have any thoughts. Okay, well, I'll suggest that maybe staff give it some more thought, and if anyone has any follow-up suggestions, to shoot us an email, and then we'll come up with a recommendation for the next meeting.
Gunnar Rachel has stuck a comment or comment in the chat box. So regarding Thursday mornings. So
Thursday mornings.
mm-hmm.
I think that can work. Is there a week of the month that's better than another? I know MPO has one. We have Thursday morning meetings once a month, but I think there's plenty other weeks of the month that would work. Okay. Well, we'll take a look at calendars and see if there's any compelling reason to pick a particular week over another, and then we'll come back with a suggestion in April. And then maybe we'll do a Thursday morning annual meeting for May as well.
I think that sounds like a plan. Okay. Do you have a report on some ARPA grant applications?
Yeah, real briefly here, as you know, we work with a handful of jurisdictions where we try to, we're kind of walking before, we're trying to walk before we're fully, while we're still crawling, but we still try to help some organizations with a handful of applications, and wanted to recap what we have learned since the submission deadline. So the Denver region is receiving $90 million in requests for travel and tourism, received $90 million in requests and has 19 to spend. Denver region has 10 states in it, and EDA said to us that they're frankly targeting 2 awards per state. In Iowa, we know that there are 7 applications, 4 of which are from the region. And we can also tell you that the applications will be reviewed on March 1, well today, and then we should know by the end of March whether or not we receive any. The numbers are favorable, but of course it's out of our hands as to whether or not we receive it.
Any other update related to ARPA and grant applications or? Okay, other business for the board today.
Anything from the board? I'll just mention that we keep hearing from folks that are interested in working with us. A couple organizations that have reached out to learn more would include Grandview University and then also Polk County Hazard Mitigation. So just want to let you know that we're starting to have some of those conversations, and we're not even seeking them out necessarily. They're coming to us already. So there is a lot of interest in what's happening with MIPA, and we're starting to have some of those conversations. We'll, of course, continue to keep you updated.
So we will stay posted for the next meeting, correct?
Yep, the next meeting is scheduled on April 1, I believe. It should be on your calendars. If it's not, then I failed to send it, but I'm 90% sure.
Okay, any other business? Thank you everyone for your time today, and if we don't talk before then, we'll plan to connect virtually on April 1st at 10 a.m.
I correct myself, it's April 5th.
April 5th then at 10 a.m. Have an awesome day. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help, staff.
Thank you.